Okay, well, let me go back here. Now, like I said before, we mentioned about the King Alfred's plan years ago. And we found out that during Lyndon B. Johnson, you have to realize Lyndon B. Johnson was the president that was put in place under the Bushes, under the New World Order, under the CIA, because JFK did not want to go with the program. No sooner as LBJ was put in place, what did you get? The Vietnam War. See, they needed us for the war. They wanted him to enforce the war, to keep the war going. Now, during that time, they came up with a plan that would enslave our people in concentration camps and kill off the government red list, or those that are amongst the poor who could see. Okay, that was the plan. They don't care where we work, as long as they work, as long as we work. See, at that time they were planning, okay, we'll put them in camps, and we'll just, like we do with your prisons, we'll have them work for our corporations within the prisons, within the camps. They didn't care. Either way, we would work for their corporations. All right, so that was their plan back then, and to kill those that opposed the government plans. But under Ronald Reagan, Rex 84, he implemented the plan to include Hispanics, to include not just black people, but the Hispanic population or the Latino population, who was also growing in America. So that's what Ronald Reagan did. See, the presidents are all puppets, and they're just going with the program, what's being rolled out. But I need you to read these departments again real quick for me.
Participating federal agencies. National Security Council.
National Security Council.
Department of Justice.
Department of Justice.
Central Intelligence Agency.
CIA.
Department of Defense. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Department of Interior.
And I want to make this clear, brothers and sisters, for all you that may come in contact with this broadcast. Listen clearly. There is no rogue terrorist group or terrorist activity anywhere in the earth. It don't exist. Zero. All the terrorist activity is through government. They paid their lone agents to do these things, to blame it on whoever they're going to demonize and go against. That's just that's war propaganda. That's what they do in war. If there's a person you want to take down, okay. Let's just say that something was connected to this person, and that and just lie and say this person is planning on doing this. And let's demonize them to make everyone believe our story, so that now we can go against these people. That's all this is. It's war propaganda. But now the war is against citizens. Can't you see this? All these agencies are in place in America as if someone is trying to do something to them. These people that they're doing this against just want to live their lives. Listen to this clearly. I'm going to go into those who are thinking to bug out, or what you would call preppers, or go into rural areas. I'm going to go into that in a moment also. Because see, that's the plan for a lot of people. Listen, I'm going to go into a rural area where I can be safe from government. I guess preparing doing something is better than doing nothing at all. Okay, so I don't want to be the guy that say, well, listen, it's all for nothing. But I'm just going to give you some details that I've come across. And you can do what you need with the information. Participate in state agencies. Go ahead.
Under federal jurisdiction. National Guard units. State police. Participating local agencies under federal jurisdiction. City police. County police.
Now, it says county police and city police. Do you notice that now the police are in full authority or under full control of the elite? You notice that they are like a separate faction that don't even protect and serve the people anymore? They're actually a hand of the government against civilians? You think that's by chance? I need you to read the memo to National Security Council, even before 1954. Read.
Even before 1954, when the Supreme Court of the United States of America declared unconstitutional separate educational and recreational facilities, racial unrest and discord had become very nearly a part of American way of life. But that way of life was repugnant to most Americans. Since 1954, however, that unrest and discord have broken out into widespread violence, which increasingly have placed the peace and stability of the nation in dire jeopardy.
See, here's the memo that they got to pass the law for Rex 84. They're saying, listen, since this separation, since this civil rights fight, there have been high sentiments in which the black people are rising above their programming. In a nutshell, this is in this memo. It says, being that these people are learning to arm themselves, protect themselves, and don't want government interference or government intervention, they may grow as a cancer within the country to topple security. That's the memo they made in 1954. That we must watch the population of these minorities because they're not taken to our programming. They don't fear us anymore. So they wrote a memo to the president, a memo to the government in 1954, and then this became prevalent during the 60s, during the civil rights movement. They say, listen, we need to build these camps and build these camps now. Started building the camps privately. Who was building the camps? It was all under military construction. Links right back to those who control Halliburton today. They were building the camps back then. Right up under your nose. They was picking areas within the states, outside of the cities, for these camps, right under your nose. So this is military. This is the military grid planning a mass roundup and extermination of its civilians. And I'm talking in 1954, 1960. To get right to it, so we don't spend all, because we can have a complete lesson on the King Alfred plan alone, believe it or not. The history of it and how it was promoted, and it was successful in England. They killed a lot of our people in England during this time, during the King Alfred's time. Now, I need you to read the preliminary on page 2, the chairman of National Security Council, the preliminary memo of the Department of Interior. Okay? I need you to read the regions. First under King Alfred plan so they'll know.
Under King Alfred, the nation has been divided into 10 regions.
10 regions.
In case of emergency, minority members...
Now hold up. That's how you know Barack Obama must be Satan's son. He signed into legislation the 10 governors a year and a half ago that will allow, in a state of an emergency, for 10 governors to have full power under the president. Now that lets you know he's just following the program, because I'm reading the 10 regions right here before Barack Obama was ever president. They will be over the 10 grids, the 10 concentration camps. They will be what we would call super wardens for the government over the population that are in these camps after what you would call a so-called emergency. Read it.
In case of emergency.
In case of an emergency.
Minority members will be evacuated from the cities by federalized National Guard units.
Read that again.
Minority members will be evacuated from the cities by federalized National Guard units.
By National Guard units. Do that sound like Katrina to you? Sounds familiar, don't you? Don't it? Guess what? The hurricane did not cause the flooding. The levees being blew by black water caused the flooding. So calling it Katrina is a joke. That was total espionage. That was total government military testing, beta testing against civilians, against black people. Against black people. Read.
Minority members will be evacuated from the cities by federalized National Guard units, local and state police, and if necessary, by units of the regular armed forces, using public and military transportation, and detained in nearby military installations until a further course of action has been decided.
Until a further course of action have been decided. Now think about that for a moment. And you notice while they were planning this, something else was happening. They was giving us music, dancing, church, and all these other things, keeping us distracted. And you know, Michael Jackson, Thriller. It was like, okay, it's, you know, nothing will never ever happen. It was giving us movies and the cities. And guess what the other people who received this memo were doing? Moving to the suburbs, separating themselves, suburbians. They didn't want no part of this. So they started separating themselves by living in a place where it's taxed too high for the lower class. And then when we started making money and going near where they were, they started moving out of those places and separating themselves. So someone had the memo, but we don't. The poor never get these memos. But those at the pinnacle of your corporations do. That's why your boss, your CEO, the cats that are controlling your Fortune 500 companies, they never live near you, do they? And look what happened during the time of Katrina. Even the black people who were to do good, living in the higher places, okay, and living amongst the other, you know, living amongst white people and all that, it was if their neighbors didn't even know them when this broke out. You understand? Their neighbors became totally fortified against them. Y'all better wake up, man. Somebody know what's going on. They just not telling the poor. Finish reading.
The 10 regions.
10 regions.
Region 1, Capital Region. 2, Northeast Region. 3, Southeast Region. 4, Great Lakes Region. 5, South Central Region. 6, Deep South Region. 7, Deep South Region 2. 8, Great Plains, Rocky Mountain Region. 9, Southwest Region. 10, West Coast Region.
So they got the regions from coast to coast ready for concentration camps after an emergency throughout the whole country that will be controlled under the president, under 10 governments, which just so happened was signed into legislation about a year ago. To show you, the president just follows the memo. We had the memo. We was reading this before we knew what a Barack Obama was. No one knew Barack Obama in 2004, 2005, 2006. He just came up out of nowhere. So we were reading this before he actually signed this in the legislation and say in the state of an emergency, we need 10 governors that will report directly to the president. This guy, man, there's no pushback with Barack Obama. I mean, boy, I know George Bush is sleeping great at night knowing that Barack Obama is in place. This guy make George Bush look like a choir girl, man. He done signed everything in the legislation. The mark of the beast, with the medical care bill under Barack Obama, whom most people dub Obamacare. A two-way radio, which can be implemented for the benefit of those who may have Alzheimer's or whatever. That's the RFID chip. That's a part of the medical system. And then he signed a legislation, the 10 governors that will be over the 10 regions against the poor. What will happen? Who have they demonized to put into these places within a 24-hour period in which they would go 4 in the morning to take these people away into the camps? Who did they demonize? Who's on the list back then?
The black Muslims.
The black Muslims.
Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
If you have a coordinating committee within colleges that are not part of the regular fraternities.
Congress of Racial Equality.
Congress of Racial Equality. So if you have some people in Congress that represents black constituents, they're going to be taken to the camps too. Read.
Uhuru Movement, a group on advanced leadership.
Uhuru movement was a movement strictly for black empowerment. For black empowerment or Afrocentric teachings. They were dubbed terrorists back then. Who else?
A group on advanced leadership. Freedom Now Party, United Black Nationalists of America.
Who else? So if you are a black nationalist or believe that black people should be treated equally, you're a terrorist. Read.
The New Pan-African Movement.
Any movement that was pro-black was dubbed at this time what you would call terrorist. At this time, they were being dubbed terrorists or people that are not against the government's way. They're not with the government's plans. They don't believe that the government should vaccinate their children and give them cancer and kill them. They don't believe that the government should come in and teach their brand of education that demoralizes a society and kill the people immorally. They do not believe that the government should come in with the CIA and bring drugs through their neighborhoods and kill them. They don't believe that we should use their children and use their elderly as guinea pigs so that we can test our drugs out, our poisons out, so that we can use it on the masses in the future. These people are against our intrusion, so they are an enemy to the state. These are enemies to the state as far as we're concerned. Read.
Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
So the Southern Christian leadership, the black leadership, let's round them up too. This is part of legislation, brothers and sisters. This is not us. This is actually what's in a bill in your government. They have plans of rounding you up. What else?
The National Urban League.
The National Urban League.
The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
NAACP, which was actually set up by Jewish people, but they're going to round up the blacks who've embraced this ideology nonetheless. They're going to lock them up too. Who else?
A Committee on Racial and Religious Progress.
Committee on Racial and Religious Progress. So for those that want progress racially are an enemy to the state. So the question is, how can these groups be targeted as enemies? You have to realize who's targeting them. The Southern, what they call the Southern Poverty Law Center, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now that sounds innocent, don't it? No, it's not innocent. It's a Jewish proxy that's used to demonize groups. It was set up through AIPAC. It was set up through Jewish people to monitor those who would one day possibly oppose them. The Bible says they are the synagogue of Satan. So how can they now get in the media and say, well, we have to watch this group? It seems like they're a little controversial. When they're more controversial, they do more death and destruction and killing than anyone. But yet they're going to claim that they're on the lookout for internal terrorism against the state. Now, they've added black Israelites to that group. Southern Poverty Law Center. They've actually added Tea Partiers to this list. Tea Partiers, people who believe in the Constitution, to this list. And it tells you that what will happen at 4 a.m, they will knock on. Let me read this real quick because I'm going to get through this and then we have to go through these scriptures. It says, local police and minority leaders in action to head off the emergency. That's number 1. Number 2, countdown to 8 hours begins at the moment the president determines the emergency. So there's an 8-hour period from the time that Barack Obama stands up and say, it's an emergency. What will happen within 8 hours? A, emergency to be national, coordinated, of long duration for 8th hour. This is now, since your government, state, local, and federal, are now been merged through these fake terrorist activities that they have put forth. Whenever this emergency comes, and let me tell you, I don't know what this emergency will be, but it's coming. And you can probably be expected before the next election. Of long duration, 8th hour. The 7th hour, county police join local police. The 6th hour, state police join country and county and local police. 5th hour, federal marshals join state, county, and local forces. That's the 5th hour. The 4th hour, National Guards federalized, held in readiness. Regular armed forces alerted, take up positions, minority troops divided and detained. So all the black troops or the Hispanic troops or the minority troops their guns are confiscated from them and they're detained too. Why? Because they're not going to sit back and watch their people get killed. That's what happens in the 4th hour. It says the regular armed forces alerted, they take up positions, and minority troops divided and detained in the 4th hour from this emergency. So no sooner as Barack Obama or any president announced this announcement of emergency, a national emergency around the country, this is what happens in each hour. Now, these things are going to happen exactly how it was put in legislation, and there was no such thing as Barack Obama when this was written. 3rd hour. Listen, this is in the 3rd hour. Regular and armed forces alerted, take up positions, minority troops divided and detained, along with all white sympathizers under guard. So any white people, like the Oath Keepers and all them, and those that believe in civil liberties and that want to protect all people, you are going to be put with the black people, with the minorities. So this thing is racial, brothers and sisters. Next, for the 2nd hour, President addresses minorities or the people he's speaking of on radio and television. You notice they had a grid, a test, so that the president can take over all communications at once. This is it right here. I'm reading it. I read it about 6 years ago. They getting the grid in place. Gives it 1 hour to end the emergency. President addresses the minorities and give them 1 hour to stop the emergency. And I'm looking at this Occupy Wall Street thing. And let me tell you, they're merging this all together so that when the president say, listen, I'm going to give you 1 hour to stop this thing. What happens? At the 0 hour, all units under regional commands into the emergency. So at the 0 hour, it's over. They got everything in place. It's a go. That's it. Survey shows that during a 6-year period, it's a lot of stuff in here. But I'm going to send this to the people, the brothers and sisters within the academy. They're going to have this here so they can see it themselves, let you know this is nothing by chance. Barack Obama is actually exercising the power that was given to him for some cash. That's it. And it's against us. Why? Because they know that something is going to happen. Something is going on amongst the poor of our people that will rise and oppose this demonic and satanic system. Now, you might have those out there who say, well, listen, I'm going to bug out. I'm going to get ready. And that'll help you temporarily in the rural areas. That will help you temporarily. But here's the deal. I'm going to show you how they're going to do this. See, you have to realize the powers of this earth. You can't, they know what you're going to do 4 and 5 steps in advance. So the bottom line is, you have to be almost unpredictable with how you operate and how you move. They predict that now that people see what's going on in the cities, that most people would think about getting country land, getting places outside within the United States, getting rural areas, putting your guns there. But listen to how this ties in, and I need you to hear this clearly. They don't care if you buy land because that will deplete your funds. They're going to take the land anyway. But first they'll take your money you're paying for the land. Because that, with less finances, your options have dwindled. It's been minimized. That means you cannot put your finances into a sinking hole, into a sinking ship. It's like almost reshuffling chairs on the Titanic. Seeing the Titanic fall, and you sitting there, well, this chair go here, let me put this place in here. It don't work that way. Just think about this for a while. So the government, just say if you have a nice place, 20 acres or 15 acres or whatever the case is, of course they'll take your money. Because that minimizes you being able to take that money and turn it into something tangible outside of the sinking ship. Now the smart people are saying, listen, I know about Agenda 21. So under Agenda 21, no land is sacred. I don't own nothing. Then some people might say, well, listen, on my land, to protect its interest and my money, I'm going to get guns. Okay, you got the right to bear arms. As long as you're not harming no one else, you're getting arms to protect you and your family, yourselves, we understand that. That's lawful, that's right. But here's the issue. Predator drones. They knew this. So now they got the Predator drones, and they're going to use the attack on the so-called constitutionalists to claim that these people are planning an attack against the cities and against the state, and they're just going to bomb it with Predator drones. And no one will live to tell your story. They will spin your story and say that you were planning some terrorist activities. Now they got your money that you could have planned better. They got your finances. Everything turns back over to Agenda 21. So these are the things you have to think about, especially for those that are thinking about escaping within the United States. So what do that mean with the Predator drones now? That means the food you stored, the water you stored, all the rations you stored. You have to do something different. Because these constitutionalists and these preppers and all these guys, let me tell you, they're dealing with the Gentile mentality. That's why they're doing this prepping and doing all these things. But you have to realize the children of Israel and those who believe, the only way we're going to make it is through our God. We have to do the unpredictable thing. We have to be guided through the Spirit. So, with you planning strictly on having rations of food, what good is it that now the government is telling you, listen, if you are storing more than 6 weeks of food, you're labeled a terrorist under the government. So they're going to say that, listen, you're planning a long-term attack against the government, or you wouldn't be separated from the government. Why be separated from the government unless you have a plan against it? This is what they're telling the people. This is what they're programming. These people are prepping food because they don't want no one knowing what they're doing. They're doing something in secret that may mean them making a dirty bomb or some other thing. This is how they're going to spin this thing, brothers and sisters. So if you're getting too much food, you're labeled a terrorist. And it's crazy, just to inform people, like us informing people, you're labeled terrorist. You're not supposed to tell people what the government is planning to do against the people. Terrorist. So, the question is, how do we spiritually combat this? Because they have set up the grid. You have to realize the construct you're living under is a Masonic construct. They're the Masons. They laid the cornerstone of America. They laid the constructs. You think they're going to let you come in and circumvent their grid? No. Either you be a part of the grid or you are a threat to it. They're the constructors of that country, of the freedoms that they gave you. as long as you agree with their evils. And now you're trying to separate yourself from what they constructed. Satan don't like that. Let's go to Matthew 6 real quick. So what we're saying is, if you're going to do any planning, plan wisely and plan on the outside of Agenda 21. That's all I can say on that right now. If you plan on putting your money within that country, you're going to lose every dime and the chance you had to move that money into something tangible outside of the country. Matthew 6, and I need you to read, start at 30.
St. Matthew chapter 6, verse 30.
This is Christ. This is Yeshua. Read.
Wherefore, if the Most High so clothe the grass of the field.
I need you to go before that. Let's start. Let me see where you at here. Where you at here? Matthew 6. You remember the story that Christ gave also, the parable? I'm going to get this. I want you to read this. But the parable of the guy who had a barn and he stored in access. Mm-hmm. He built up all this stuff in a barn. Mm-hmm. Saying that, listen, I'm never going to run out. And then the Most High says, and then Christ says, ye fool. Don't you know tomorrow I require your soul? And then who will all those things you stored up belong to? He was showing you the preparation is not a physical preparation. Look at all my goods. So if something happens, I'm going to be fine. No, you're spinning your wheels. There's only one way to make it through this. I need you to read. I know the story of the parable, but I'm just giving the story of the parable of he was a fool. He was storing up all these things not knowing that his spirit was required. Then it says, you fool. Then all those things you stored, who would they belong to? And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be crazy because in order for us to prep, a lot of us must get with some of these white supremacists and some of these constitutionalists who know what you're planning because you're doing it with them. You're shooting guns with them. You're getting rations with them. So when it comes down and people run out of food, they're going to come together and say, I know where some food is. Carlos is up the street. Or I know this dude Jeff, this black guy. he's right up the road, up near the trees over there, and this guy's loaded. Let me tell you, when everything break out and there's no law and there's no police, let me tell you, you're going to find out in those rural areas that you are alone. Mm-hmm. And it's each man for himself. I need you to read that for me real quick.
St. Matthew chapter 6, verse 24.
Read it.
No man can serve two masters.
You can't serve two masters.
For either he will hate the one and love the other.
Go ahead.
Or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve the Most High and mammon. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life.
The Bible says, take no thought for your life.
What ye shall eat.
What you shall eat.
Or what ye shall drink.
Or what you shall drink.
Nor yet for your body.
Nor yet for your body.
What ye shall put on.
What ye shall put on.
Is not the life more than raiment? More than meat, and the body more than raiment?
Go ahead.
Behold the fowls of the air.
Look at the fowls of the air.
For they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns.
Where do the birds work? Read.
Yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they?
Are ye not much better than they?
Which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit unto his stature? And why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you, that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Wherefore if the Most High so clothe the grass of the field, which today is, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, shall he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith?
Should he not much more clothe ye of little faith? Read.
Therefore, take no thought, saying, What shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or wherewithal shall we be clothed? For after all these things do the Gentiles seek.
All these things do the what?
Do the Gentiles seek.
So we're prepping like the Gentiles. The Gentiles, a lot of these Gentiles that are following these other gods, this is the only thing they know. They don't know about the God of the Hebrews. They don't know about Yeshua. So they're prepping based on what they're seeing coming down physically and not preparing spiritually. That's why they're into this prepping mode, because they're looking to save themselves. Without understanding, they must be guided by the Most High. Now, are we saying that not to store food? We're not saying that. Are we saying not? We're saying, but don't think that's going to be your saving grace. Understand that you can have a safe house, but be prepared to move out of that safe house and be someplace else. Don't think you're going to bunker down in one area until the smoke clears, because the smoke never clears once they announce this emergency. It never clears. So yes, the food will last you for a while, but you cannot put it into a sinking ship. You have to be prepared to say, listen, if I'm persecuted in this city, let's flee into the next city. If I'm persecuted in this area, let me see, do I got a brother in Colombia or a sister in Colombia? If I'm in Asia, where's the brothers and sisters in Asia? You understand? You have to be able to operate. If I'm in Africa, what parts of Africa can I go into and have refuge for a time and raise our people and get everybody prepared for what's about to happen? But I know beyond any shadow of a doubt, you cannot do this prepping within the borders of America. You're not going to be able to do it within Canada, America, or Mexico, because why? They're going to merge as one. Government-wise, power-wise. They're going to merge as one, and that grid is going to be throughout that one continent. All the rich are going to go into different parts of Brazil and all that. They're doing that now to prepare for what's about to happen on their slave grid. Okay? They're going to be going into mountainous and terrain areas, mountainous areas in Canada. They got bunkers and all that there too. They got bunkers under the mountains over in all the way from the West Coast all the way into Virginia. They got an underground cavern. So they're preparing something, brothers and sisters. But if you on the regular terrain and think you can bug out within America, look up Agenda 21. And for what the armies, which is the foreign armies, can't do to round you up, the drones will do. And the drones will not come to spy you out so that they can come and help you and put you into a camp. The drones are going to spy you out to take. It's going to be straight takeout with the drones. That's what the drones are for. The drones ain't to spy you out so that somebody can come and say, well, listen, why don't you Israelite, why don't you come into a camp with us? No. The drones are going to be used for predator drones. They're going to seek you out, watch your pattern, watch what you're doing, seeing what you're doing. And then one night, everyone sleep because they watch your patterns. They can also read the heat off of your body. They can know the amount of people in your house. One morning while everyone is sleeping in the bed, the drone come through, drop a bomb. That's it. Prep done. Finished. Over. This is how they're going to do this, man. So this is the truth. Now for the poor is going to be a little different because they can't afford to prep. They can't afford to do some of those things. The poor, 9 times out of 10, is going to be led into the camps voluntarily and just follow the protocol. And hopefully something happens where the Most High can allow some of them to escape that. Some of the poor is going to roll out altogether and just take their chances in different areas outside the country, knowing what's coming within the country. And when I talk about this, I'm not just talking about America. I'm talking about London and England big time. You have to realize they are attached in America with every program that's rolled out. They rolled it out. They are attached to the hip. So this ain't just talking about America, because they're planning something real big in England very soon. So I just wanted to pull those things out to let you know, according to the Bible, you must prepare according to the Most High. That means first, seek ye first the kingdom and all its righteousness. Read that so they can hear that.
Verse 32.
Go ahead.
Verse 33. But seek ye first the kingdom of the Most High.
Hold up. Do what?
But seek ye first the kingdom of the Most High.
The kingdom of the Most High cometh not by observation, for the kingdom is within you. Seek first God's people. Read.
And his righteousness.
And his righteousness, which is his law. Read.
And all these things shall be added unto you.
Everything you want going to be given to you on the road. Everything you need to survive, to do what the Most High needs you to do, he's going to make sure you have it. When the birds get up in the morning, they don't figure out, man, how am I going to eat today? How are my little, chickens or whatever going to eat? They don't think about that. They get up and the Most High already have somebody eating next to a Subway or next to some place, and they'll throw a pretzel down or some bread down. Dinner all night for them. You understand? So that's how it works. That's how it works. So if you're on the road to seeking the Most High, he know what you need every day. He know the food you need. He know the provisions, and he have it rolled out for you. But it first starts with walking in faith. Your preparation can only take you so far, because those are the things the Gentiles seek. They don't know the Most High, so they look at things down the line and say, well, I'm going to need this, this, and this in my house, knowing that it's going to be, they're going to flatline the finances. Also, the gold and silver thing. Yes, the gold and silver is okay, because why? It's intrinsic value. It keeps its value. But here's the problem with that. The Bible tells you that soon people are going to be throwing their idols, their gold and silver, in the streets. Don't forget, the golden calf was made out of gold and silver that they broke off and made the calf. Why? Look at what just happened with MF Global. That one thing, by stealing all that money, and they putting on Corzine, but Corzine was just a plant used for this. They devalued the gold and silver overnight just by one thing, just to make up for what the 1 point something billion stolen from these people. They can devalue the gold and silver all they want, but listen to this clearly. In a state of an emergency, you have to look at what happened in history. Look at what happened during the time of the so-called Holocaust, when all these rich people, those that didn't want to go into the camp, that was trying to escape the checkpoints, they was paying government what? They were paying government officials, people that was driving the buses and trains and all that, trinkets, gold, silver that was worth its weight in gold. Heavy clocks made of gold, they was giving it to them just so that they can drop them off at a different point or to let them go. So here it is. You may have an ounce of gold that's worth $2,000, just say $2,000 in value. In a state of an emergency, if a guy is standing there saying, I'm going to take you and your family, I'm going to kill you all, you would be like, listen, you can take this gold. It's only worth that one trip. That's it. It's only worth the one trip. So you have to look at history also. And also, when you round it up, they take your goods. They take your gold. They take your silver. So there's only but so much prepping you can do too. It's about believing and having faith in the Most High and having Him get us through this. And prepare, if you can, with others to make alternatives outside of America. I can't stress that enough. I cannot stress that enough, brothers and sisters. Everyone is not going to have a way, but when you put your mind together, you can make a way. Okay? So with that, we're going to say shalom. What time is it in the States there? Okay, we have some time then. We have some time. So I just wanted to show you that the National Defense Authorization Act is just an extension of Rex 84, It's an extension of the King Alfred's plan. It's just the same grid. They're just naming it something else and rolling it out for the people to have people know, listen, you have no rights. You never had no rights. It's time for you to pay the piper now. Okay? This is not a freedom government. It's never been a freedom government. Wake up. We are about to detain you, kill you, and destroy you, and there's nothing you can do about it. All right? The gig is up. And some people might ask, well, why would they want to do this? Why? Well, of course they would want to do this because they know that the elect of the Most High, the Lion of Judah, is there. They know that the Most High's people are there. They know that the Most High's people are waking up to the game and no longer want to play the game. They know that God's people, through the Spirit of Christ, is moving them together against the spirit of the demonic New World Order. And the biggest enemies of the state are the spiritual believers who will come together spiritually and fight against those demons who are afraid because they're running out of time. They're running out of time. All right, so they are, let me tell you, you think you need to be afraid of the government, brothers and sisters. Let me tell you, they are far more afraid of you. They are far more afraid of you. Especially, you got Ahiah, you got Yeshaya, you got the pop. Let me tell you, you got the name of the God that they are afraid of. Don't forget, that spirit came up to Christ and was like, listen, don't torment me before my time. Just cast me into some swine. Yeshaya looked at him and cast the spirit through his name into swine. Now that same little scary little demon that was nothing, that Christ just cast out of nowhere, that same demon actually be worshipped by one of your elected officials, by your Barack Obamas. That same little scary little demon that Christ cast out of nothing, who was nobody, who was nothing, who was afraid, will be reverenced as a god by your politicians. Okay? So you have the power. It's just now exercising that power as the children of Israel. You have to renounce all religions, renounce all these holidays, and come back to the God of the Hebrews. His name is Ahiah, and his son Yeshaya. We have to break our captivity and come back to our God. Okay? And we have to warn the people and tell the people that Christ is coming. We have to let everyone know that Christ is on his way. And tell the Gentiles to put down their idolatry, or they're going to fall with their Gentile governments. Okay? So what I'll do, I'll take up a few questions real quick. I wanted to go into this China thing, but I guess I have to wait for that. I can prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that Gog and Magog is actually talking about the Chinese. It have nothing to do with the Russian people. Just in a nutshell, when you do the research, and I'm going to bring this research out soon on Dan, I'm going to bring the research out on China. Listen to this clearly. Philip of Macedonia, which was Alexander the Greek's father, they fought against the original Japhetic people, Chinese people, Philip of Macedonia, and moved them into the areas of China where they are. Even though they were in China, they was also in different parts of Europe and in Russia. But through fighting and through also colonization, eventually the Europeans or Edomites, which are there today, the Russians that are there today, moved them, the colonies that were there that was Asian, into China. Philip of Macedonia, Idumean, an Edomite, did this. His wars, the Asian wars of Macedonia, you can look that up. That's how Japheth moved into China. So when you look at when it says he will put hook in his jaws and bring them back, it's talking about bringing China into the war, into the Middle East. And as you can see, the ships are there after America invaded Syria. That's Japheth. That's China. It's not talking about Russia. Russia is just a proxy being used by the New World Order, okay, to play both sides of the fence. They are eyes for the Idumeans or Edomites, and they try to play as the enemy, but they're not the enemy. Okay? So wake up to that. That's another illusion or deception they're using. All right? So, let me answer a few questions here. Unpause this. Unpause. They said the other day that Iran is linked to 911. Ridiculous. Okay, what's next here? Yeah, we'll do a teaching on grace very soon. Someone asked, was Christ also telling us how to deal with everyone as fellow Israelites? Exactly. You can read that in Matthew, the 5th chapter. How you can love your enemy. Loving your enemy is not putting them in position to kill you. Let's make that clear. So it's a different love your enemy than what's being taught in the churches. All right? Someone says in the movie In Time shows how the elites desire more time. I haven't seen that, so I got to look at it. Someone says Sam's Club and Costco is selling 1-year survival food kits so you can purchase and be labeled as terrorists. Sam's and all that are set up to see who's on the grid preparing. They do that on purpose. Mm-hmm. So whoever out there stocking a lot of food, that's reported to the government. All right? Let me tell you, there's no end to their probing and how they operate. There's no end to it. So when the Most High says, come out of my people, listen, you ain't going to beat that thing from the inside. Okay, the next thing is, someone says it's looking like Mexico. Well, Shalom, Lex. One thing about Mexico is you got to realize that Mexico, the Mexicans are trying to get to in America. You understand? They done turned Mexico into a third world country, and they have toppled it through the CIA and the drug cartels. These are all CIA-backed infiltrations. You understand? So let me tell you, the eugenics program is ramping up high time in Mexico right now. And you got the drug cartels, and I know this for sure because I know people who are there that live there, how they got the drug cartels going into these little cities, taking over all the cities, taking over the little parts and killing people. American citizens, they're being told to behead and kill American citizens straight off. Straight up. These drug cartels. These are all CIA-backed programmed machines. So you got to be careful in Mexico. Let's see. Now, if you want to talk about a place like probably Argentina for a while, that's not a bad idea. If you're going to South America, Brazil for a while, that's not a bad idea as long as you're going into certain parts that's outside of the craziness. Huh? Yeah, Chile for a while, which is actually, or go to the parts that's right there on the Pacific coast. That's off the Pacific coast for a while. See, but really, when you're talking about those lands, the land is not expensive, but you're talking about building land from almost nothing. And the elites are buying up a lot of that now. You're going to find out, you go to buy some of this land, they done already purchased it. It's bought. It's off the lot. And you have to make sure if you're going to buy some land, don't look online because all the scams in the world. You have to actually fly into the country. You got to fly into the country to get land, to find out what's really going on. And you can't be talking when you get off the plane that you're looking for land. You're there visiting, and you just find out how, things operate first before you start running off of your mouth about what you're going to get. Okay, because when you get off a plane with American passport, usually the people there are looking at the fact that you may have some money. You may end up kidnapped somewhere. Okay, so it's almost as if you're not in the Illuminati or in the Masons construct. You have to be extra careful. They may have buddies that's over in Colombia, over in other areas, who can do some negotiating like that. You understand? But when you go into a place and you don't know anyone, you have to stay low and find out who does what, and do it that way. What was the next thing here? Someone says the word Jah is not in the original and first translated Bibles. That is true. It says it is the Lord. You are right. That is correct. Jah is a deception. Jah is Satan. Yah is Satan. Okay? We went to the class last night, and if you haven't seen it, view that class we did last night. And if you still hold on to the Tetragrammaton, Jehovah, Yahweh, Yahweh, then listen, you're just blind. Period. You're just walking blind. You don't want to admit what the Masoretes and the Jewish people did. You just want to follow Satan. So it's there plain and simple for you if you want to get the information. Okay? The upcoming feast is starting the 20th sundown. It's called the Feast. Well, they call it the Feast of Lights, but it's what we would call the Feast of Dedications in Maccabees, the fourth chapter. It's an 8-day period in which was dedicated back when the Maccabean brothers, when the Maccabeans, who are Israelites, Judah, rededicated the temple back to the Most High. So it's from the 20th sundown, and then you count 8 days, and on that sundown, it's a feast also. The Jewish people do it under Hanukkah, and it's not Hanukkah, but they do it under Hanukkah, worshiping their God, the giving of gifts and all those things, which is nothing but a Jewish Christmas. All right, that's all it is to them. All right, not saying that if you want to give someone gifts, you can do that. There's 365 days in a year. You can make a day in which you want to dedicate something to the people you love and give them gifts. There's nothing wrong with giving gifts. But it's something wrong with doing it at a time in which the time of Saturnalia in the worship of Satan. They instituted this, the Jewish people, and integrated that holy day since it's late in the year, late in their year, put it that way. And they made it where the Jewish people would also spend during the last quarter of the fiscal quarter for the economy. So it's still the worship of the same gods, whether it be Jewish Hanukkah is also the same gods as European Christmas. Same gods. So you're not to follow it the way they're following it. Okay? What is the next thing? So also the brothers from each of the camps within the United States, and I want to speak about that real quick. Each of the camps without the United States, the brothers and sisters that are operating there, they're going to make a dedication video in which how they will rededicate their lives to the Most High. So they're going to make that, and they're going to make it a montage in which they can give out to the people how as the Israelites we would sleep, but now they're going to rededicate their lives to a higher. So we're interested to see how that's going to work out. Okay, that's going to be good. So someone says with the next line, another thing we wanted to say for brothers that are out there teaching and all that, whether you be in the UK, whether you be in the United States, wherever you are, whether you be, no matter where you are, that if you're out there teaching, do not put on a Mitri out there. I'm just my suggestion. I'm not telling you. You grown, you can do what you want to do, but my suggestion based on what they're pulling out right now and demonizing Israelites, I would say go out there with your white on. You don't need no Mitris. If we go out there to teach, if you ever see me out there, you're going to see that I'm not going to do it with Mitris out in public like that anymore, based on how they are. You got to be wise as serpents, harmless as a dove. You understand? So just be out there, you have your white, talk about Christ, the coming. Don't offend anyone. Just go out there and just teach the truth, and the truth stands by itself. Someone asked, did we tell them about the Virginia Fusion Camp? Well, what they call fusion centers are actually connected to the camps that were made way back when. At this time, when they did the King Alfred plan, it was 800. Now there's over 3,000 camps, with them turning ex-Army and Navy bases into concentration camps now. So it's over 3,000 now. Okay, so you notice when those Army bases and all those closed down, that the housing and everything just stayed like it is. Okay, and they turned some of these ex-Army bases into federal prisons. So all these are part of the concentration camps. Okay, let me see what else we have here in questions. Okay. Someone asked, what part of Africa will be safe? More so, you want to stay more so near the northern parts of Africa, if you can. Because soon, with the legislation through Barack Obama, they're going to go through Africa and, you know, like the bigger places, and start toppling them all together. Ghana is a good place temporarily also. Someone asked, is Belize safe? Well, they've been buying up a lot of areas in Belize, so that's an option you can look into. I looked into that years ago, and I know some people who've went to Belize, so you would have to look into that. I haven't been there myself to know. Okay. They're coming in quick, so. Quadash Way left a message, and I appeared unto Abraham. Yeah, that's Exodus 6:3. I appeared unto Abraham and Isaac and unto Jacob as God Almighty, but the name Jehovah, he was not known to them as that. Yes, we're familiar with that. But that name was injected by the Masoretes. When you look at our lesson we put up last night, it's crystal clear that they injected that. It was impossible for his name to be Jehovah because, number one, there was no J's until the 16th century. That's number one. So you have to think, okay, Jehovah wasn't there. So 1000 AD, the Christians, the Catholic Church, linked in with the Masoretes, which are the Jewish scribes, and agreed to put the Tetragrammaton, which is the name of Satan, in the text. The name Ahiah was not known unto them. Keep in mind, in Genesis 22, Abraham named the place in which he would sacrifice Isaac, or that he went to sacrifice Isaac before the Most High intervened. He called the place Jehovah Jireh. So if Jehovah was not known to Abraham, how could Abraham name an area Jehovah Jireh? So every place you see Jehovah, it was injected. Okay? The name is Ahiah. That name, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not know. Because that name was presented to Moses to deliver our people who would deal with that new God, or the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Ahiah, opposed to the Egyptian gods that they all knew in Egypt. Okay? They have started manning the camps, and they made it for a state of an emergency to have it manned and up and running within 72 hours with the new legislation signed. So they're planning something. And I really think whatever they're planning is about to happen very soon. Okay? I don't know what they're planning, but they're planning something. Someone asked, what about the islands of Trinidad in Jamaica? Temporarily, you can go there, but when you have to realize there's going to be some tsunamis that's going to come through. When you look at Revelation 16, the tsunamis that's going to actually hit the eastern coast sooner or later is also going to affect the islands greatly. So you have to think about that too. All right? What's the next? Let's see. What he says? On the name the Most High 5 or 6 times throughout Bereshith, Genesis. We know the Bible does not contradict. Yeah, the Bible does not contradict. Okay? The Bible is intact. The contradiction comes with the Masoretes who injected Jehovah or Yahweh or the Tetragrammaton. Okay, that's the contradiction. The Bible is no contradiction. But what they injected contradicts. Okay? All right, look at the lesson we did last night and it'll clear everything up for you. All right, what's the next thing here? Let's see. What about the islands of Seychelles? No, that island, you have to check that island. The East Islands of Africa are pretty nice. You have to check that out yourself. I haven't did any research on that in particular, but I will now that you've given me that one there. The next one, Caleb 037, it says, the description of King David is also a lie. The word is not ruddy in the 1535 Bible, but it describes him as being well colored. Thank you. That is true. That was another deception by the Masoretes to make people think that Jacob was the color of Esau. All right? Now that Esau is claiming to be Jacob, they had to interject certain places in the Bible to turn Jacob red. So you can easily see their deception in itself. If the Bible calls Esau red in Genesis 25, how can David be red in Samuel's? So the contradiction is what the Masoretes did when they got in charge and was able to, right after the Dark Ages, really enforce their Masoretic and demonic understanding and inject their God into our records. Do not go into the Congos. The Congos have been an experiment ground for the CIA for years. Okay, that's right. Okay, Kodash Way said what he's saying is that the children of Israel knew the name. That is correct. All right, I read it wrong. I'm sorry about that, brother. All right, what is the next question here? They're coming in so quick. I got to pause this again. One moment. Someone asked what they was meaning was, okay, someone asked, how do you submit the music to the radio show? Okay, what you would do is you would call in on the day of the show, and you probably speak to Elder Gabar, and he'll direct you into that going forward. Okay? You call into the radio show. Go to Blog Talk and type in GOCC, and you'll see the radio shows. I think Gabar's show is the Wednesday show, and you can ask him how can you submit the music, and he'll help you with that. The next one is someone says, was Christ teaching us how to deal with brothers from all nations, or just fellow Israelites? The Bible will tell you, with much life within you, be at peace with all men. That's scripture. So Christ was not just teaching us to operate with Israelites. That would be ridiculous in a world with all people. Christ wasn't just dealing with Israelites. He was dealing with Pontius Pilate. He came in league with a Gentile. And Pontius Pilate said, I see no fault in this man. As a matter of fact, he compelled me to be Christian. I want to follow this guy. So Christ was respectful to the nations. You don't, let me tell you, you treat everyone like you want to be treated. You treat the Gentiles like you want to be treated. Okay? So you treat everyone righteously and let the Most High be the judge of this. All right? Someone asked, is it possible that Edomites are Japheth? It's not possible that Edomites are Japheth. That term in itself doesn't really mesh. We know Japheth was made in Genesis, the 11th chapter. There was no Edomites at that time. Esau and Jacob came out of Isaac. So that alone tell you that Edomites cannot be Japheth. Esau came out of Shem. Entirely two separate families. Okay, Philip of Macedonia, and we did the research on it, and we also did classes on it in the past if you go through the archives. Philip of Macedonia, which was an Edomite, Alexander the Greek father, warred against the Asians and colonized and took different parts of Asia. The original Europe was all Asians. That's why they call it Asia Minor. Europe was part of Asia. Now you have Caucasians who are from the Caucasoids because they went into the Caucasoids in the mountains and they schemed their plan from the mountains looking down on the cities, looking down on the lands around them. That's why they Caucasians. They're not from Asia, they're from the mountains. They went to the mountains and planned their schemes against the Asians. Okay? And then after they colonized it, for a time, they were saying that they were Asians. The same way when they came to the Americas, started taking out the North American Indians, years later, you would see Edomites saying, well, listen, I'm Indian, I'm Cherokee. They put on some Indian stuff and and this is what they do. Okay? So that's just part of what they do in colonizing. Okay? Yeah, when we're looking to not eat or drink anything during the so-called Christmas holiday. Against it. They sacrifice children. They do all types of things on this day. Saturnalia. So we're going to say, let's fast against it. Let's go against it. Don't eat no food, no water, if you can, during that period. If you're interested in those questions as far as getting someone to you, send an email and someone will get to you. If I can't answer some of your questions that might be controversial, don't think I'm ignoring your questions, okay? Certain things I can't say based on the fact that if I answer you and tell you how I feel about that particular thing, they could take the video and spin it a certain type of way. I will never say that it's okay for someone to get arms or to protect themselves. I'm never going to go into that line of talking again. Peace and love and tranquility is what we all need. All right? What's the next? All right. Someone asked, is Kenya safe? I wouldn't be going into Nigeria or Kenya. I'll just tell you that. I wouldn't be going into Togo. I wouldn't be going into none of those areas. Well, there's different stories when it comes to the death of Cain. Also, in the death of Esau, there's a little conflict on how some of them died in certain records. Okay? I wouldn't put down all the records because of that one situation. And what I'm doing is I'm looking into the translations and what was there before the translation. So I'm looking to see that record so that we can get those things straight. But I wouldn't put down all the records because one thing don't match. When you know our records went through thousands of years of translations and being handed down. I'm sure there's an answer to it if we look further into it. You're not going to find many records with Ahiah in Yeshaya's name in it. If you go into the Hebrew, you will see it says Ahiah, Ashar, Ahiah in the Hebrew. Someone asked, and here's a good question, where should I put my money where it would be safest the longest? And how do you feel about having money in Chase Bank? Okay, first of all, like I mentioned before, you want to put it into tangible goods, and you want to talk about putting it into land outside of that particular country. You probably want to think about that. So that's something those are outside biblical discussions. So that's something that you would probably have to send an email, have someone get with you, because we have people who are dealing with those types of things. You understand? And again, still get your mind set to understand that everything you have in this world eventually of substance, until we're in the wilderness, we're going to lose all this. So you're just looking to have that money get you from base 1 to base 2. All right? So, and if your money's tied up in the bank, what happens when they institute the mark of the beast and you're not able to actually spend your money because it's credits? You can't spend it unless you take the mark of the beast. So these are the things that you have to think about. Lex Will says, beat your plowshares into a sword. I'll tell you what, if you know how to use a plowshare, that's a deadly tool in itself. I'm in contact with our brothers who are in different parts. Yes. Someone says, as far as the movie Asher, do we speak against it or do we say nothing? Don't speak against it. Don't speak against it. But we know what they're doing. It's propaganda to demonize and come against people who know they're Hebrews. And see, I told people years ago that don't think that this is about Arabs, this terrorist thing. They're just using them as a proxy so that they can use that as a springboard to eventually go against us, our people. See, but they know that Americans would readily get behind a foreign threat than a domestic threat. So they had to start it by claiming that it was some people outside the country that ran into the towers, knowing that the end result, they would be coming against us. And like I said before, and I said it last night, those brothers out there cursing people out, calling people out of their names, and think that that's spiritual and it's scripture, it's going to come back to bite them. It's going to come back to bite them, because they remember those words that they use when they're arresting you. Anything you say can be held against you in a court of law. Now, these things people have said on YouTube is documented. You can't get before someone and say you didn't say a certain thing. So they have kept dossiers on every threat that people made publicly through YouTube. So there's nothing I can say about that. You know, they have to, you know, if I was them, I would probably get on and say, listen, I know I said a lot of things in the past, but on record, you know, my mind was in another place. I'm following Christ, and I'm going to let Christ be the judge of these things. That was me in the past. I done turned a new leaf. They need to put that on record. They need to put that on record with a date behind it. Okay, because, hey, they come in, the Southern Poverty Law Center, along with these NATO troops, because it's not going to be your people rounding you up. It's going to be NATO troops. Okay? And some people are going to say, well, if I got to die standing with that, then I'm going to die standing with cursing people out. But listen, if something happened to you for you cursing someone out, it's not going to be because you stood for Christ. Okay? It's not going to be because you were standing in boldness in the truth. It's your ignorance that's going to have you dealt with. And see, and this is what happened during the time of 70 AD. You had the zealots who was in Masada. Now check out the zealots. These guys were rogue fighters for the children of Israel. They're what you would call the thugs of Israel back then. These were the mighty. The Romans put a trench around Masada. Now the zealots didn't take out their weapons and go down and start fighting the Romans. The zealots in turn started killing and fighting their own people, taking their gold and precious things from them within the compound, within Masada. So, hey, and they got exactly what was coming to them. So it's the same way. The zealots was like the rogue Israelites. They were the ones that would say anything, do anything, and all that. What I'm saying is, Christ says, Yeshua, I send you out as sheep among wolves. Be wise as serpents and harmless as a dove. You have to realize, think about that. That's Yeshua. So if you're out there cursing people out, calling them the devil and saying what you going to do when the Most High give you power, they're like, okay, well, I'll tell you what. We got power right now. So we're going to work this thing out. See, this is how they're going to do it. So, hey, I'm just putting it out there. All right. With that, we're going to say the Lord's Prayer, and we're going to open it up where Brother Gabar can come in. I want to say that